Behind closed doors, what avoidants secretly crave in intimacy? There's a common myth about avoidants that they don't want closeness, that they're perfectly content keeping love at arm's length. But that's not the full truth. Underneath the guarded exterior, behind the carefully constructed walls, avoidants carry a set of unspoken cravings during intimacy that they rarely, if ever, put into words. These aren't wild fantasies or dramatic gestures. They're quiet, deeply human longings, desires they fear will make them look too needy or too exposed. And because their protective wiring tells them vulnerability is dangerous, they keep these desires hidden, even from the person lying next to them in bed. But if you listen closely, not just to their words, but to the subtle shifts in their touch, their breathing, their body language, you can feel the truth they're not saying. One of the most unspoken cravings is emotional safety in the moment. For many avoidants, intimacy can feel like stepping into uncharted territory without a map. Their instinct is to keep a piece of themselves out of reach, even while physically close. Yet deep down, they want to feel like they can fully relax into someone's arms without fearing that it will later be used against them. They're not looking for grand confessions or verbal reassurances in that moment. What they crave is the quiet assurance that they're safe to let go, that you won't demand more than they're ready to give, that you won't read their closeness as a permanent surrender, but as a fleeting gift they can offer without being trapped. They also secretly crave being seen without performing. Avoidants often carry a silent burden of control, always feeling like they must manage how others perceive them. In intimacy, they long for a moment where they don't have to be anything, no charming persona, no stoic wall, no calculated moves. Just themselves. They want you to see the raw version, their messy hair, their unguarded sigh, their unpolished humanness, and still choose them. They'll never ask for this directly because it feels too exposing. But when they lie still afterward, eyes half closed, almost childlike in their stillness, that's their way of quietly surrendering the mask. Another craving they rarely voice is slower intimacy, not just physically, but emotionally. Avoidants are often portrayed as people who rush in physically, but flee emotionally. Yet many actually want intimacy to unfold at a pace that allows them to stay present. Fast, intense moments can overwhelm their nervous system, triggering the need to withdraw. What they secretly desire is an unhurried connection, one where the pauses between touches are as meaningful as the touches themselves, where breathing is synchronized, where there's no pressure to move things along, where the moment stretches like it could last forever. That pace makes them feel like they can stay without fear of drowning. Then there's the deep, unspoken longing for silent connection. Avoidants often communicate love through presence rather than words. During intimacy, they may crave moments where nothing is said, but everything is understood. A shared glance, the warmth of intertwined legs, the feel of your hand resting lightly on their chest. They don't always want to narrate their feelings or explain their thoughts. They want you to feel them. They want a partner who can sit in that silence and know that it's not emptiness, it's depth. They'll never say, "I need you to understand me without me talking," because that feels impossible. But their body language in those moments is screaming it. A craving they'd probably deny if you confronted them about it is affirmation without interrogation. Avoidants like to feel desired, but they fear that acknowledging this need will make them dependent. They don't necessarily want compliments about their body or skill. What they crave are subtle affirmations that they matter to you, that being with them is not just about physical release, but about them as a person. Maybe it's the way you hold their face in your hands, the way you look at them with softness after a kiss, the way your touch says, "I'm here for you." But they dread hearing direct questions like, "What are you thinking?" or "How do you feel about me right now?" because it forces them into a spotlight they didn't ask for. One of the most vulnerable cravings is post-intimacy closeness without demands. Many people interpret avoidance pulling away after sex as rejection, but often it's self-protection. In truth, they might want to stay close, but they're terrified that lingering will open the door to expectations, emotional conversations, commitments, vulnerability they're not prepared to sustain. What they wish they could have is a post-intimacy space where they can remain physically close, your arm draped over them, their head resting lightly near yours, without pressure to talk or analyze. That's where their guard starts to melt, even if only for a moment. They also quietly long for moments where you lead without control. For an avoidant, intimacy can feel safer when they're not solely responsible for orchestrating it. Yet they hate feeling cornered or dominated. The sweet spot? When you take gentle initiative, guiding their hand, shifting your body closer, offering your lips without asking, but still leaving them space to reciprocate in their own time. They crave the feeling of being wanted without being pinned, of being guided without being caged. Perhaps the most heartbreaking craving is permission to not be perfect. Avoidants often feel like love is conditional, that they're only worthy if they maintain a certain image or emotional distance. In intimacy, they secretly hope for a partner who sees their flaws, their hesitations, their inconsistencies, their awkwardness, and stays anyway. They want to believe they can be clumsy with their words, quiet with their feelings, even distant at times, and not have that love withdrawn. This craving is rarely expressed because it feels too dangerous to test. But if you notice the moments when they look at you like they're checking to see if you've changed your mind about them, that's what they're yearning for. In the end, what avoidants crave during intimacy is not so different from anyone else's needs. The difference lies in how they approach it. They want safety without smothering, presence without pressure, desire without dependency. They want a connection that feels both grounding and spacious. And while they may never put these desires into words, their bodies will tell you in whispers, the way their shoulders drop when they feel understood, the way their breath deepens when you slow down, the way they stay just a second longer than they planned before pulling away. If you love an avoidant, the key is not to pry open their truths, but to create the kind of intimacy where those truths can surface naturally. Give them room to stay instead of reasons to run. Show them that closeness can feel like freedom, not captivity, because when an avoidant feels safe enough to let those hidden cravings be met, something rare happens. They stop just surviving intimacy and start savoring it. And in those moments, you're not just touching their body. You're touching the part of them they've been guarding their entire life. At the end of the day, avoidants aren't unfeeling. They're just careful with their hearts. The walls they build aren't to keep you out entirely, but to make sure it's safe before they let you in. If you can meet them with patience, presence, and a love that doesn't demand but invites, you might just see those walls lower in ways they never thought possible. And when that happens, you're not just sharing intimacy, you're sharing trust. And that's the rarest gift of all. If this resonated with you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, take care of yourself and your connections.